Growing an excellent team is without doubt critical to success as a business owner. Now, your team allows you to increase your profitability and get others to do the work so you can enjoy more time and freedom. However, many business owners get stuck at certain revenue levels and despite their hard work and grind, just can't seem to push through. Now, tune into this episode where we talk through the missing link that these hard-working but frustrated business owners have in their team. The link that is preventing them from achieving the business success that they desire. And your stress levels are down, your frustrations are down, and you make more money, you have more time. Without this first team, you might actually have reasonable money, but you won't have lifestyle. And in that case, I think that's business failure, because what's the point of creating something that destroys you? Pricing didn't price this properly.
Yeah.
And pricing's like, well, ops, you guys are useless. Like,
You never deliver on what we priced. You should be able to get it done in this time.
the sales guys like, well, you marketing guys, you're not giving us any leads. And the marketing guys
You're
are like,
burning all the leads we give you.
that your belief around this being possible is often the biggest issue. You know, is this actually possible? Well, I'm telling you right now, this is possible. It's possible to build an exceptional team who can do the heavy lifting of growing your business. In fact, not only is it possible, it's necessary to have a great business. This is where it goes wrong with the first team. Welcome to the Profitable Tradie Podcast. Tony Fraser-Jones here with Phil Smith.
G'day, mate.
My man, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Ready to roll.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I'm ready to roll. Are you?
Always, bro. Ready.
Mate, I'm always rolling.
Well, let's do it.
Rolling.
All right. Well, today we're talking about basically how you've built up your business based off your own hard work. You know, you put your blood, sweat, and tears into it, employed several people, but you've reached a roadblock and you're stuck at your current level of revenue. Business and life feels busier now with more team members when you actually hoped it would be easier. And the thought of trying to grow, even more, it actually scares you as it feels like you'd only have to get busier, more stressed, and more under the pump.
Yeah, it's an important point too, mate, because people will never grow into psychological pain if they think it's going to be more difficult. They'll find a way of sabotaging their growth. We see it all the time, making bad decisions or just not taking opportunities. So that's a problem. Yet, people in that position, they look at other people out there who have got bigger operations than them, you've got really strong profitability, and seem to have the time to go fishing or hunting or take vacations or hang out with their kids or coach their kids' sports teams. And they're like, what gives? No,
Yeah, why not me?
why not me? What's going on? It's not what's going on, it's what's not going on.
Yeah, it's what you haven't done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
that's
got
it.
that right?
Yeah, we got that right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate your support there, buddy.
I got you, bro.
Sideways look. So, to get a business that does, $2 million plus is fine, but how do you get it to 5 or 10 or 20 million? That really requires team. Today we want to focus on not just team, but a particular part of your team. And we call that the first team. And so the first team is really the key leaders that you must have in your business to do the heavy lifting, as it were. They're the people who do the heavy lifting of growing your business, because you can't do it all. So the podcast really today is about what the first team is, why it's critical, and how you actually go about growing that first team.
Yeah, nice. I'm sure you got a story to kick us off.
It is nice. I appreciate that, mate.
Yeah, man. Bit of props for you.
Thank you. I do have a story.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a story. It's more of a explanation. It's like thinking about a gearbox, your first team. They're like the gearbox in your business. Now, if it's just you, really you've got one gear. Your work is on one cog, but the first team is like putting more cogs in the gearbox, and it allows that effort to be multiplied. So you go from having a 3-speed gearbox up to an 8-speed as you grow that first team. And really that first team, those key leaders you have, just make the business go so much more quickly. Like, it grows exponentially because of the gearing that it provides. So it's really about that leverage that gears provide, and your first team are those key cogs that you put in place.
Well, if I want to build on that concept, it's not just faster, it's also more efficient, and it's not as hard on any one particular gear, which I think is massive, right? Like, if you tried to go that fast with just the one gear, the gear wears out and you need new transmissions.
You do.
So in this case, adding the cogs is crucial, and I think if you don't have a first team, your business will get to a point where you run into a bunch of problems.
Well, and even if it's a reasonable size business, there's businesses out there doing 1, 2, even a little bit more million in revenue, but it's all about you as the business owner, that you're it. You're by force of your own will and strength of personality and working yourself into the ground. So you carry all the responsibility, and that's tough. But what happens is you will eventually reach a capacity point, and your business literally cannot grow past that point because you are essentially a bottleneck through which no more things can pass, no more decisions can be made, no more opportunities can be taken, and things stop growing. And actually they start falling to bits because you get overwhelmed, you get stressed, you get frustrated, and your energy dies. And so as a result, if you don't have this first team in place, you make less money than you should, you have less time for sure, and you get massive lifestyle drag. You don't have time for family, fun, fishing, friends, whatever it is. That stuff is just not happening because you are literally doing all the pushing.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously that leads to a whole lot of resentment for your business and the growth, and generally you'll actually start to sabotage it and move backwards. But on the other hand, if we get to this point and we actually grow the capacity there and get that first team, we got some big upsides.
Yeah, I think the first thing is you've got a bunch of smart people pulling together. That's a great feeling when you know there are other people who are smart and hopefully smarter than you in many situations doing the work. So it's rather than it being about me, it's about us, and you've got capacity to grow. So instead of one winner, you might have 4 or 5 winners in your first team, and the amount of work that they can get through, the amount of impact they can have is incredible. Just like the gearbox goes further with way more efficiency. And so your energy's up, your overwhelm's down, your stress levels are down, your frustrations are down, and you make more money, you have more time, and your lifestyle is actually where you get lifestyle. Without this first team, you might actually have reasonable money, but you won't have lifestyle. And in that case, I think that's business failure, because what's the point of creating something that essentially destroys you?
Absolutely. Whereas if we've got all of that in reverse and we're feeling really good about it, we're once again excited about the growth, we're pushing for it, and we actually kick on to bigger and better things constantly, which is massive. So where do we start with this? I mean, what is a first team?
Yeah, first team is concept came from a book that Pat Lencioni wrote, which is called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And if you want a great writer on management, he's a gun. Definitely, he's got a bunch of books, great stories, really easy to read. And basically what it is, the first team is those key leaders in your business who do the hard work of the business. And so it's effectively a senior management team. So if you think about your contracting business, it probably looks something like yourself, your operations manager or director, your lead pricing person, your admin manager, perhaps a marketing manager or a finance person as well, if your team is getting larger. So it's those key department heads, if you like.
It's the department head responsible for each of the core functions of your business.
That's
so
right.
Basically someone responsible for bringing the work in, so marketing, sales, someone responsible for the pricing, so making sure that those deals are actually priced right, someone responsible for getting the work done on site, which is your operations lead, someone who's responsible for admin, all the back end and making sure that actually everything happens after the job and around the job. And you bring all of those together along with you, and basically you can manage those core functions as a group, which is super powerful.
Yeah, and so first team means that the most important team in the business is that team, rather than those department heads being focused on their team. For example, your operations manager or director just being worried about their team. Because that creates a whole bunch of issues which we'll get into, but it's bringing that first team together who are responsible for the results of the business. So not only are they responsible for their department, which they have to be, but as a team, they're responsible for the results and growing the business, which is you're not responsible yourself anymore. Of course, you're part of it. You're a key part of it. You're the leader, so you're going to be a big part of it. But you as a team are responsible, which is very powerful, and it's very freeing for you as a leader once you get those people in place. It'll change your life and your whole experience of your business, your energy for your business, your excitement about what's possible for your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, you've got a different person who's actually responsible for each of those core functions, in the group collective. And so as a result, like if it's just you, the reality is there'll be 1 or 2 of the functions you're more passionate about, that you're better at. Whereas, when you've got a key person who's responsible for each one and you work together as a group, it means that you've got someone who's super strong and focused in each of the areas, and that with your powers combined, you are Captain Planet of business, which is pretty awesome. So,
excuse me, that little virus is catching me, mate.
Yeah, well, it's going to catch me in a minute too if you don't cough it the other way.
Well, you should stop leaning in.
Well, I love to lean in and get
Looks
close
like
to
you want some sort of personal contact there. It's quite off-putting.
Yeah, well, I like to breathe in your coughs. Anyway, let's get on.
Right. So, back to the first team. The thing too is a first team actually de-risks your business. And this is a thing that we often don't think about as leaders in our business. Like, if we're everything, then if that falls over, we have a big problem in our business. Obviously, that's a problem for our families because our livelihoods could be cut off. And so the best insurance that you could ever have is to build your first team, and then they help build their teams, because your business can actually carry on without you. You probably need to pay less insurance then, actually, because you'll have an income stream.
Yeah, that's right.
And so it de-risks you, but it de-risks other people as well, because the first team, they start to learn about the other functions in the business as well. and so they can help out when people are away or things people might leave or whatever. So there's way more bench strength in that team because everyone's responsible for the results of the business.
Yeah, it's massive. So should we talk about how to make it work? I think for me the very first thing is you've really got to hire A players who love to win and love being held accountable. Like your first team is not for the faint of heart. It's not for B team members, and it's not for people that are casuals or distracted or people with weak sort of constitutions.
Weak people.
Yeah, and again, like it's a mean thing to say sometimes, but in the aspect of being a first team, you really have to have a thick skin and be strong. It's super important because you're going to be very, very candid with each other. You're going to hold each other very accountable. Everybody is very accountable for a result, which is going to be critical to the overall business success. And considering that as a team, you're responsible for the overall business success, if somebody's not pulling their weight or somebody's not delivering or somebody's, whole department is suffering and they're not able to do anything about that, it affects everyone. And so it's important that everybody can take feedback, honest, direct feedback, that you don't have to beat around the bush, that you can have a spirited discussion, that you can have healthy conflict, and that, basically this is a team of winners who turn up to kick ass and take names. Because if they don't, they A, won't fit the culture of what you're trying to build in the first team, and B, they won't deliver those results in the first place, which leads to the first team being pointless because you just end up falling straight back into being responsible for that area of the business, defeats the purpose of having the first team. So, when you've got that first team, you're running your communication rhythms, your meeting rhythms, and we've been into meeting rhythms in a lot of depth in previous podcasts, but one of the most crucial ones is that you have a weekly deliverables meeting where the first team gets together and each of the department heads is going to come forward and have to put their numbers up on show and go through what's gone well and what hasn't gone well and what they're doing about it. And so they need to be able to take the feedback and the accountability of that and, also be proactive and smart enough and enough of a winner to actually have a good plan and know what they're going to do and be able to answer the questions of the other department heads and basically be credible on the topic. And so you really need to get winners into this team. It's not just whoever happens to be there right now. You need proper owners of the function.
Yeah, I might interrupt there.
Yeah,
you're normally the one who interrupts, so I'm going to interrupt. This is where it goes wrong with the first team. Often we'll find a really good employee. Maybe we've got someone who's a gun at pricing. We want to make them the pricing manager, or maybe a gun tradesperson, or even a gun foreman if you've got a bigger business, and we make them the operations person. And so you've got to be very clear that the person you put in that team actually has the chops to do the job of being in the first team. So they not only have to have expertise in the area, but they have to have the ability to step up and play that bigger game about running the business, because you're actually looking to train your future business leaders out of this team as well. It could be some of your succession planning or people who could free you up as well. So the higher A players part is critical. Don't just put people in there because they're a warm body.
Yeah.
That's a bad move.
Yeah, your recipe for disaster.
Recipe for disaster.
Yeah. Not to mention, we've said it 1,000 times, but, the thing that'll kill A players is watching you tolerate B players.
Yeah.
And so the hard part is you've made this team of absolute winners that are, killers and badasses that, just want to get on and get results. And if you've got someone in there who's, not of that caliber, the hard part is that they'll get eaten alive, A, but B, it really disheartens the A players in that group because they start thinking, well, I thought this was, senior management. So, why is Mike here? He's just, not up to scratch. And it actually just damages the culture of that first team. And so you just can't do it. You have to have A players in there. It's just simple as that.
Yeah. So the first team is powerful as you grow, and there's a dynamic in play here. As your business grows, if you've got 4 people at the moment in your business, 5 people or 6, then, you can do a lot of everything. There's a lot of cross-skilling. You're a generalist. But as your business grows, there's much more specialisation. This is what happens in businesses as they grow. And so you get people who specialise in certain areas, and then you get department heads who are obviously members of the first team, so they specialise in their area. And if you don't create an effective first team, what will happen is we call silos, where this is like operations blames pricing because they can't hit their GPs. They're like, well, pricing didn't price this properly.
Yeah.
And pricing's like, well, ops, you guys are useless. Like, this is...
Yeah, you never deliver on what we
We
priced.
never
You
deliver
should
on
be
the
able
price.
to get it done in
You're
this
hopeless.
time.
Like, why are there all these overruns? You guys are not managing the production properly. Or the sales guys like, well, you marketing guys, you're not giving us any leads, and the vice versa. The marketing guys
You're
like,
burning all the leads we give you.
you're not. Well, we've given you all these quotes and bids to do. We've generated all this stuff, and you're just blowing it all.
Or pricing and sales get on each other's nerves. You know, like sales is saying, hey, you know, you're outpricing all these jobs. We're not going to be able to win them for this. Whereas, you know, pricing saying to sales like, hey, you need to be able to win jobs at this price, or otherwise, what's the point in having me? We could just have a vending machine. You know, so yeah, it gets a lot of tension if this isn't managed right.
So the first team is what provides the coordination in your business. And I know for some of you listening, you know, you probably think, well, I'm not there yet. You, as your business grows, trust me, you will get here. This will happen. It happens to everyone. So this is like a little bit of a warning for you.
Yeah.
So to be ready when it does and seeing it happens.
It's not a theory thing, guys. We've literally
this
seen
happens.
this thousands of times.
This happens.
It's the same bottlenecks all the time, and this is one of the. I think this is one of the more insidious ones actually, because it's not obvious. You know, like when you get to the bottleneck of an operations manager, for example, it's usually quite obvious. You're like, I'm struggling to manage a team. I need help. Or you can't get through all the pricing. You're like, I literally can't price enough work to win anymore. So I need someone in pricing. Like, these are bottlenecks that are obvious. But when you get to the strategy team bottleneck, it's never obvious until you've done it before or seen it before. So if you're getting to that point, take heed.
Yeah. So the first team, strategy team, same thing. But I think first team is a good way of looking at it. So they provide the coordination, and they do that because the first team is collectively responsible for the results of the business. And so at the meetings and the sessions you have with the first team, you work out the problems for the better of the business. And that's why you've got to hire the right people, because if there's egos and stuff at play, then it doesn't work. And sometimes your role as the CEO, the leader, is to help them, to coach them through that's okay. But that first team is the glue that pulls all those silos together to make the coordination of the business. So very, very important as you grow.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like changing hats, right? Like, you know, I might be wearing the hat of being the pricing manager while I'm with the pricing team. But when I turn up to a first team meeting, the reason we call it the first team is as you said earlier, it's because it trumps your other team. So when you go up and you're in a first team meeting, it's more important that you're putting on the I'm part of the business hat as part of the first team that runs the business, not my hat as pricing manager or operations manager or admin manager or the like. So it's really, really important that they see it that way and that you paint it that way to that team, or otherwise they bring their silo hat to the meeting and you just end up with animosity and different agendas, and that's not the idea. So it's really, really important we tackle that. And obviously, as we take that approach, we get collective responsibility for those business results. So first thing is, you can help to support each other. So instead of, you know, pricing getting at sales because, hey, you guys need to be able to build more value because we need to achieve this margin, and sales getting at pricing because it's like, I'm never going to be able to sell it for that margin, you fool. Instead, they're going to work together to be able to, you know, actually suss a price and a sales method that's going to work for both of them. Because when you're putting on that team hat, that first team hat instead of your department hat, you work more collaboratively. You realize that you have a shared goal, which is one of those 5 dysfunctions from Pat Lencioni's book, is not having a shared goal, not being able to remind yourself that we're actually trying to achieve the same thing here. We're on the same team, and you know, we both actually want the same result. And so people work more collaboratively. You know, operations works more collaboratively with pricing as well. You know, hey, price for this many hours and we're going to be able to achieve it in that many hours. They work collaboratively and they end up achieving a better GP as a team. Plus, you know, they actually learn more about each other's departments, like you said. So in that way, they become actually quite insightful. So when one department's having a problem, other department heads actually learn to be able to diagnose that problem and help them solve it, and not miss the wood for the trees, because they're not so deep in that function that they are clouded by, you know, what's more obvious.
The thing here, to be really clear, is you will be responsible for, you know, if you're a department, you'll be responsible for the results of that department, but you're also responsible for the results of the other departments. That's what collective responsibility means. So if you're ops director or ops manager, you are actually responsible for the results of the pricing department as well, as part of that collective team.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's the real rub.
Because you're responsible for the overall business results.
Overall business results.
And then the cool thing with this is that people start looking at statistics that aren't often looked at, but that are super, super important, ultimately like more important as an overall business metric. So it's funny when you're smaller, before you have this team, the only person that looks at the P&L is you. The only person that cares about the cash flow is you. Whereas obviously as you end up growing that first team, it's awesome because everybody's responsible for their own key metrics in their department, but you start having a collective responsibility for those overall results like profitability, cash flow, things like that become important to the team, and they work collaboratively to achieve the department results, but also to achieve those overall results, which ultimately make it worth owning your business. So it's a major change and super, super impactful.
And I think the cool thing here is it helps you grow your leaders as well. I know I was talking to a client recently who have a bigger business of sort of 10 to 15 mil in that revenue range, and they have a marketing person, and their ops person is now asking questions about marketing in the meeting. Most of them are dumb questions, but they're actually asking questions and
That's
learning.
How you learn, though. If
That's
you never
right.
ask those dumb questions, you never learn, and you can never be helpful.
That's right. And so after a while, those dumb questions turn into slightly more insightful questions.
Well, before you actually realise it, those dumb questions actually become better questions than you think, because usually they're asking a question about something which, for example, in this case, the marketing person is so far ahead in their knowledge that they're actually blinded by the obvious, and or blinded to the obvious. And so those questions from someone who's more of a layman, but has some knowledge, often can actually unearth something that was a really easy piece of low-hanging fruit that was missed because the person responsible has overcomplicated the situation through their own knowledge. So. Yep. It's massive.
It is
massive and huge for your results. So
then you as a leader have a really important part to play. So you are the CEO. If you're listening to this, most of you will have your own business. So your job then is to actually build your first team. That's your most important job, actually, because otherwise it's still you're the main gear. You're the main cog with just a few cogs spread around the place. But building the first team is putting it into a coherent gearbox that'll actually drive the business forward. So you've got to change your perspective on your role in the business. Your role is about building the team, the first team first. The first team then can actually help you build the other team. That's super important. So the first team will do the hiring. And they'll do the hiring for their department. You've got to get your ass out of that if you really want to grow a substantial business. Because if you're in all the hiring, it's going to take way too long. It's a real bottleneck. And I know that's a bit butt clenching sometimes. You're like, how's that going to work? But trust me, guys are doing 10, 15, 20 mil, even 5 to 10. They can't do all the hiring because it's just impossible. Yeah. And the reason that they've grown is because they're out of it. The first team is taking responsibility for that. So that your job is a fundamental shift as a leader and a coach of that first team, building that first team, nurturing them, making sure that they are doing a good job.
Well, we've talked in the past about the inverse relationship between growth and control. And so obviously if you want to grow, you need to relinquish some control. You can't keep your finger in every pie. The pies get too big. There's too many pies. You don't have enough fingers. It's as simple as that. But in this case, if you build that first team and you put the effort into it and you actually spend your time making sure that first team is great, at least the control you're relinquishing is to a trustworthy place. Whereas if you haven't put the time and effort into building a great first team, then you're going to have to relinquish control anyway over time with growth, only you're relinquishing it to people that are incapable of actually taking it on. And that's where you have problems. So if you're spending the time building a killer team here, then you will have to relinquish control, but you're relinquishing it to a really trusted and capable place, which is going to actually crush it and probably actually do a better job than you were. And
100%.
It's freeing. It's it's massive. It's going to get you all the results that you want and more. I mean, it's a no-brainer really, but it doesn't make it easy. It's still hard from a mental and emotional aspect.
Think that's something that I jotted down when I was thinking about this pod, is that your belief around this being possible is often the biggest issue. Is this actually possible? Well, I'm telling you right now, this is possible. It's possible to build an exceptional team who can do the heavy lifting of growing your business. In fact, not only is it possible, it's necessary to have a great business. And so your job is to learn the skills. First off is often within yourself, the belief that it's possible, and then the skills to do it. And as I said, your job is really to collect the talent, to nurture the talent, and keep them accountable. To act as a coach to ensure that there's good cohesion, make sure they're heading in the same direction, and to provide the development for that team, because effectively they're following the path that you've had to follow as well. And so they've got to go through a lot of the growth processes that you as an owner or leader have got to go through. And you have to let them make mistakes as well. This is really important. So you have to let the responsibility of running the business rest really heavily and squarely on their shoulders. Don't put half of it on your shoulder and half of it on theirs. That's not a first team philosophy. The operations person has to be fundamentally responsible for the projects and the performance of the work out in the field, out on site. That's their job. The pricing person is fundamentally responsible for getting the jobs priced. So that's very important that they do that, and that's how they grow. They will make mistakes. You've got to be comfortable with that. Part of a coach, that happens in a game of sport. Happens all the time. It's going to happen in the business as well. So if you are thinking about this, you're probably thinking, well, how am I going to get all these people at once? Like, how am I going to do that? How am I going to afford that? And that's a great question. As you grow a business, you don't need to do all of this at once. Because obviously if you go and hire 5 people with large salaries, these are going to be highly paid people. That could sink the overheads in your business. So you can build this a brick at a time. Yeah, definitely. And I think that's important. So, you'll probably start with an operations person and an admin person and a director of those areas, and then it'll be the pricing manager, and then perhaps the marketing director will come in, and then perhaps a salesperson as you really grow, the sales director area. But you do it a bit at a time. But you put the disciplines in place from the start. Yeah, the right
communication, the meetings, the deliverables, the statistics. It all comes in straight away.
And you yourself may be filling a couple of roles in the first team. You may be the CEO, and you still may be the chief pricing person, or
you're doing the sales.
Yeah, and that's okay. You can wear a few hats in that as you grow your team out. So you don't think you have to do this all at once. It is a brick by brick process.
Yeah, totally. So I think we got some great points here, man. Should we land this plane?
Let's do it. Creating a business that makes big profits, and I'm talking hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, and that is fun for you to own, requires you to build a strong first team. Now, most business owners understand that team is important, but they don't recognize the importance of building this outstanding first team who share the responsibility of running and growing the business with you. Start building your first team today. Thanks heaps for listening. We'll catch you all again next time.
See you later.
Congratulations on being part of a select group of savvy business owners who are taking their businesses to the next level. And to help you on your journey, don't forget to check out our show notes for a copy of our free book, The Profitable Tradie, and other valuable resources. Thanks for being a part of this special group, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Profitable Tradie podcast.